Hello and welcome to Mountain Mover. My name is Landis, and I recently got back from an absolutely amazing trip. It was a once-in-a-lifetime trip, to say the least. Just got back from Antarctica. It was a very, very tough couple days down there through the Drake's Passage. It was really rough seas. We'll talk about that in a little bit, though. But God really had his hand on us and got us there safely. Let us really enjoy our time while we were in Antarctica. So our guest tonight is going to be Joe Musgrove. But first, check out the movie trailer that he was in along with me. Here it is.
When Landis was little, he had a little ball and bat in the house. That's all we ever heard was baseball, baseball, baseball.
I first found out I was 8 months pregnant, that he was missing parts of each of his limbs. I don't even know how to explain that day. That day was just by far the hardest day I've ever had.
This baseball is something I didn't even dream of him wanting to do.
This takes hours and hours of practice, right, bud?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's told me he's going to be the first baseball player to be missing all 4 limbs.
Good job, buddy.
That hurts. I know there's going to be times that it's going to be hard for him, but with the right equipment,
Yeah, there you go.
with the right tools, with the right people supporting him, I don't know what that kid will accomplish in his life.
When I grow up,
I want to play baseball. I'm headed to high school, and my goal is to make the varsity baseball team.
Playing Little League is one thing. Landis is going to have to work a lot harder than the average kid to be able to play at the high school level.
He has had coaches over the years tell him, you can't play baseball. He has had kids tell him, you can't play baseball. And he has just looked at them, and he doesn't say anything, because then he just goes out and shows them.
I've always had challenges in my life, but that's never scared me. Everybody's got something that they've got to work through. I know all odds are against me right now on making this team.
There's something that's inside this kid that makes him different than most every other kid.
People seeing me how I am, they wouldn't think I'm here to play varsity baseball.
Accelerate.
But I'm here to prove everybody wrong and show them that I can.
It's unbelievable.
We're getting ready to play on Victory Field. It's in 78 days.
Shoot three! Right here, go to it, three!
My name is Landis Sims, and I believe anything is possible.
So I make sure to remind Joe very often that even though he's a World Series champion, an MLB All-Star, and he's done a no-hitter, that he is in my movie. Joe, welcome.
It's like clockwork, man. I love it.
Every time.
Thanks for having me on, dude. I'm excited.
So I guess let's start it off. Like I said, you are a World Series champion. What was that like pitching in the World Series?
Oh man, dude. Well, I think I look at it more as like what part of my life, my baseball life that was. That was my rookie year. I'd come up the year before, but I played like 2 months and it ended the season as a starter, made like 10 starts. And then my first real full season, I found myself in the World Series with guys like Verlander, Carlos Beltran, Brian McCann, Bregman, Altuve, Correa, Charlie Morton, Josh Reddick. I mean, the names went on and on with that team, coached by Hinch and, Cora, who were incredible, Brent Strom. I mean, the whole staff, top to bottom, was an incredible group of people. So part of me was like very intimidated and, a little bit fearful of, saying the wrong thing as a rookie or doing the wrong thing or rocking the boat. So I really just tried to stay to myself, latched on to a guy like Charlie Morton and Colin McHugh, who were like, really good mentors for me in my first, full season. And by the time that playoff run came, I had gotten booted out of the starting rotation. I was in the bullpen. And I had, made quick work of my opportunities there and got myself into a good role as the eighth inning guy, essentially going into the postseason. So when I look at my postseason run then compared to the one we just made, I feel like I was so oblivious to so many of the things that come along with like the stresses and anxiety of being in the playoffs. And, just so focused on wanting to do my job that I missed a lot of the little things that I picked up on this time around. But obviously getting to that stage in my first year with those guys and winning it all was, one of the best things for my career. Getting that experience at an early age and being a young guy on the team and just getting to kind of sit back and watch how things were done and learn from those guys, and then go to a place like Pittsburgh where I have a chance for a few years to kind of step into more of a leadership role there and, develop myself back as a starter in the rotation, and then ultimately take all, the combination of some winning experience, some losing experience and leadership, and then bringing it to a team that's got a little bit of both. And I can kind of just let everything fall into place as it needs to.
Yeah, so like you said, you went from being this rookie, you were far from home. You tried to be, the quiet guy, didn't say anything too wrong, but then you end up getting a little bit of experience, and you end up being the veteran guy on your hometown team. What was it like, hearing the news that you were traded to San Diego, you were headed home, and you were getting to play for the team that you grew up cheering for?
Yeah, and it's weird. It's weird to hear that because like I still don't it doesn't seem realistic to me to consider myself a veteran because I'm around guys on the team that have been around for longer and have had more accolades, but the game is getting younger and younger. And the truth is I am more of a veteran in the league. But hearing that coming to San Diego, obviously the first thing is like, I'm about to be back in my home city and I'm going to be playing for the team that I, grew up watching and loved. And, my ultimate baseball dream would be to be playing for the San Diego Padres as a starter when the team is good and has a chance to win a World Series, and all those things lined up for, the year that I came in. So, that's the first initial reaction. Then there's a little bit of anxiousness that sets in, thinking about all the things that come with it. And, not only the responsibility, but the distraction and, the comforts of being home, all things that can kind of, throw a wrinkle in your mentality. So a lot of back and forth with emotions, but obviously super happy to be home, dude. And, obviously looking at the roster, the guys that I get to be around while I'm here and while I'm doing it, still going through, growing phases for me. I mean, I feel like the game will never stop. You'll always be like learning something new, or you have to at least have the mentality of trying to learn something new. So it's always nice. It's always a little bit uncomfortable being traded, but it ends up being a blessing because you get to be around a clubhouse full of new guys and, new minds to pick from and just new relationships. So I've loved every one of my moves, but I don't think I've loved anyone more than this.
I would say that's a pretty cool call to get to receive, that you're headed home.
Really, man. Yeah, it was a blessing.
But so not only now are you in your hometown playing for your hometown team, but you also threw the first no-hitter in Padres franchise history. Walk me through the ninth inning and what you were kind of feeling there.
Man, dude, it's hard. Like, I think as like the time goes on, you start to like pull. It's like you're in the middle of a blackout, and then as time goes on, you hear stories, you watch videos, and little things start to click. But just another level of focus that night. And it came on a night where I didn't really feel that good. The bullpen before the game, I don't think I threw a single pitch over the plate. And I've had plenty of days like that, but sometimes those are days where you go out and you have some of your best stuff because you're, just that much more focused on finishing pitches. And ultimately, my only focus was to go out there and throw strikes. Don't walk people and put yourself in a worse situation for damage. So just really tried to attack the zone. I was able to get some quick outs. The breaking ball quickly became like my favorite pitch that night, mainly because I didn't feel like I had anything good, and that was the only one I was able to locate and had good action on it. So I think for those last like 3.5 innings, I didn't throw a single fastball, maybe a cutter or two and a sinker, but it was pretty much all breaking balls, just emptying the tank, trying to get to that finish line. But that 9th inning, it was an odd level of like calmness. I had gone through so many parts in the game where I felt like, were more difficult than the last 3 outs. But it goes from like a complete like zombie-like mentality of just like numb focus on executing the task to like getting that 3rd out and then like an absolute eruption, like a World Series caliber celebration on the field. So it was just like a back and forth of emotions throughout the rest of that night. But yeah, dude, just so crazy to be crazy enough to throw a no-hitter in the big leagues, but for it to be, in that moment with that team, so many things that I just can't explain.
Yeah, I remember that night. Eric Cochran, the guy that filmed and produced my documentary, he was texting me while 7th and 8th inning, just going crazy. Joe's got a no hitter right now, and I was watching. I was going crazy at home. That was a pretty cool night to get to say that. I had met you a couple months before, which brings me to my next point. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but we did do a workout together during that off season before.
Right.
So I take most credit for your no hitter.
Yeah, dude, I got the good juice, man.
But talk a little bit about the first time that we met, and going into it, what you kind of expected, and then what you got out of it after.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I was blown away, and I think part of that is because I had done some work with Eric when I was with Houston. And it had been a couple of years since we had seen each other, and he reached out and told me about this kid that he knew that he'd been working with from a young age, and that he's filming this documentary that, he wanted me to be a part of. And he thought that our personalities would match really well. And, he thought that I could be somewhat of a mentor for you. And when he sent me the clip, it was a trailer for that movie that you just showed, but it was like it wasn't that much of a trailer, it wasn't at that point yet. So all the footage was of you as, a little kid. So I'm seeing like this. I don't know, how old were you in that? 8, 9?
I was like 8 or 9. Yeah.
So you were pretty young. So when you came out, I was super stoked about the opportunity, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know, how capable you were going to be of, the physical stuff. I didn't know, if it was going to be me just trying to motivate you. But then when you showed up and got out of the car, like I said, you're like almost eye level with me. You got a beard coming in, a little bit of swagger, and then getting to watch you work, man. Like, you're seeing the level of calmness and stuff like that you had all the swagger and all the little pieces that, the guys I was playing ball with at the time have. So it was super exciting to get to watch you work. And then just the adaptability, like figuring out, I think for you, it almost seemed like you were more excited and like in love with the craft of like putting the puzzle together and figuring out how to make everything work the most efficiently with what you're given. And that's kind of what everyone's trying to do. And to see you be doing it on a level that most people don't have to deal with was one of the coolest things for me. The coachability and like just listening to us and trying these things and, being able to make the quick adjustments. I had a lot of confidence in you, and I thought your ceiling was pretty high for what you were capable of after spending just, one day with you, and then getting to chat with you in text and stuff over the time and get to know you a little bit as a person. That was, the icing on the cake, but you have my support from day one, man.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great time for me, not only because I was going to get to do a workout with a professional baseball player, but it helped me grow.
I was nothing for you. You had already been on Yankees. You've already been doing it.
You were just some guy that pitched for the Pirates for a couple years. Yeah, you were just some average guy. But
that was cool for me though too. That was cool for you to come out and kind of see the place that I get to work in and stuff, and like, it's not all glitz and glamour, working out of a backyard with a couple mounds that we had built and some overhead lights. So it shows you can kind of do, you can do a lot with whatever you're given. You just got to make it work for you.
And that's partially like for me, what was so cool about it was that it wasn't this top tier facility that we were going to. It was your pitching coach and Godfather's backyard.
Man. It's all about the minds and the voices and communication. Like that's where there's stuff to be gained.
Yeah, it was no special facility or anything, but out of that, I got a lot out of it. Not only having a mentor like you there to kind of be by my side. I was going into my freshman year or my freshman season, having rough games or rough practices or whatever. I was able to send you a text or whatever, and you kind of walk me through your steps of getting through that rough day and just preparing for the next day. But then, I made some connections that day. Dom, your pitching coach, I came out to San Diego again, and he took me to TPI, the Titleist Performance Institute. Did a little more work, kind of the same stuff we were doing, just being more efficient and trying to create more power. So, I really got a lot out of that day. But, you've said it in a couple interviews that we've done before together. You talk about how you got a lot out of that day. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, dude. It's motivation for me. There's so many things that I go through on a daily basis that, you have the initial feelings of wanting to feel bad for yourself or, make an excuse or something. And, to be around you and to see what you're doing now outside of, the baseball stuff, the impact that you're having on people, it just reminds you, of how things are never as bad as they seem to be. It brought me to a point where I was being more honest with myself about things. It was really impactful in my life, and now to be able to, hop on a show like this with you and, help reach out to your people and to your fan base and to the people that have been following your life. That's extremely special to me.
Yeah, that was a great time. And, we've kind of grown over the last couple of years, and our relationship and friendship has grown so much that we went on a vacation together.
An amazing
we
vacation.
just got back from a 2-week trip to Antarctica.
That's great.
So talk a little bit about how that trip kind of came to be and what the idea started as.
Yeah, dude. So Neil Drake is a big part of why this trip happened. I met him on a fishing trip, and we went and got dinner one night in San Diego with the girls, and Neil was telling us a little bit about what he does and his background, and him and Erica actually had a pretty good connection on where they went to school and what they were doing for work. And he said that when he went down to South America, he ended up staying there for a while and went on this trip to Antarctica. And, years and years later now, he's been a guide for 6-7 years. So he brought up the idea of the trip, and, we thought it would be a cool, experience to go down to a part of the world that not many people get to go. And, we started talking. And that night was kind of one of the nights that me and Neil first got to know each other as well. So we're kind of sharing stories about what we're into and, things we're involved with, and CAF came up, Be the Match came up. We talked about a couple of different things. And by the end of the night, we kind of had this rough sketch of what a trip would look like, being able to, support a foundation like CAF and make it a trip that we can bring you on and a couple of the athletes. And we just had this really rough idea of what we wanted it to be. And then over the months, Neil just put in a lot of work in getting this thing rounded out, finding the right people, getting everybody in touch. And, the idea was to bring you guys out there, and especially you with the movie coming out, it kind of lined up as a perfect opportunity, when the movie was coming out, to make a push and do something extreme and, really prove what that movie's about. So, a lot of people were involved in kind of getting it to that point and making sure that, it made it across the finish line. But I mean, I can't imagine that trip going any better, dude.
Yeah, it was an absolutely amazing trip. We'll get back to it in a second. We have a guest calling in. Let's bring him on real quick.
Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you, Landis. You're an inspiration. I can't believe with Christmas, the true Christmas spirit with Joe helping you and everything. It's just a great story. I'm an old time. I'm a boomer, and the producer will laugh at you. But Joe, your career, you've been with the Astros. You've been now this year with the Mets. All that controversy and stuff. Talk a little bit about playing in the playoffs against New York, the Yankees, and the Mets. What was the difference that you feel playing in those two different series?
I don't know. I think in New York, I really just the experience, obviously, of the playing years and having a little bit of a taste of what that postseason environment's like. But you go so long without it, it's not like you get back and it's like riding a bike. it's extreme, and it's so much different from some of the games that you play in season. So you can never, be fully prepared for it. But I think this year, just mentally, I was in a place where I was willing to be. I had been more honest and open with myself about the work that I had put in to get to that moment. More honest about what it really meant to the city instead of hiding from those fears of failure and whatnot. I embraced them and I took them on, and I feel like once I surrendered to that, I had so much more clarity and focus and ability to focus on what was really important in that moment and the task at hand. So I really think it was more of a mental charge than it was anything physical or experience wise.
Yeah, Joe, I'm an old time. I'm a Yankee fan, so when you beat the Mets, I was very happy about that. I got to tell you, I was very happy about that. I mean, and I got to tell you the other thing. I'm very happy because you're of Italian descent too, and I read your bio and all that stuff. How you had, you're looking forward to Christmas with the Christmas Eve and dinners and things like
the Feast of the Seven Fishes.
Isn't that the Feast of Seven?
Yeah.
Actually, we always like the Christmas Eve even better than Christmas, Joe.
So, that's where the good food's at.
Explain to me how you got to meet with Landis and how you guys work together, because I'm fascinated by your whole relationship and how you got involved with that.
Yeah, dude. So this guy Eric Cochran, who filmed Landis's movie, me and him had done some work together during my time with the Astros in the minor leagues. They were working on filming something that had the possibility of turning into like a documentary or whatnot. But anyway, years later, after I had moved on, I think I was with Pittsburgh at the time, right, Landis? I hadn't been traded.
You had just been traded like a month before. I just been
traded to San Diego, and Eric reached out. He's like, "Hey, I got this kid I've been working with, amazing kid," and kind of told me about Landis's story a little bit and said he'd been doing a bunch of filming with him and. He wanted to bring him out to San Diego, and we kind of set up a day in San Diego to take him to my pitching coach, who's my godfather, Dominic Johnson, and up in Poway. So we took him to the backyard, the place that I do all my work in the off season, throw all my bullpens, and we just talked about before you hopped on this call. I don't know what I necessarily expected, but I got way more than I was ready for. I was blown away by Landis by the end of the day. And we exchanged numbers. We kind of continued talking, and then it's been a couple of years now, and we've done some pretty cool things together.
Wow, that's really a great story. And Landis, when you were growing up, who was your role model? Like, which baseball player did you, I guess, was your role model at the time? Or I know right now it's Joe, but before Joe, who did you emulate when you were growing up?
Growing up, I was, I'm a Yankees fan, so Derek Jeter was my guy.
Okay.
I was born in 2005 in his prime. I met him in spring training before the year he retired. So that was pretty cool for me to get to meet a guy that I had looked up to my whole life and kind of idolized. So, yeah, Jeter was my guy growing up. And then a few years later, I met Joe, and he kind of took over that role of being the guy I kind of look up to. And he stepped in, been a little bit more than Jeter was. I didn't really have a personal relationship with him at all. So, having Joe as a mentor has been pretty big for me.
You know what? With all the stories about sports and always, they highlight all the bad things. We've met so many good people like Joe, and, like here in New York, we have like a Marty Lyons Foundation, Pat LaFontaine has done things. Jeter, we met Bobby Mercer. There's so many guys that do so many good things, but, I always feel like it's lost, because everything that's bad is usually dramatized. Everything is polarized. Everything's instantaneous. But a guy like Joe, this story, I mean, when I was reading about it and the producer said, I said, this is fascinating. I mean, as much as I want to ask Joe about 2017 and about, Buck Showalter thinking you were Gaylord Perry and all this stuff. But the bottom line was I got into this human interest thing. And I thought that your story, Landis, is inspirational. And it really hit me home. I said, this kid is really, what you've done and accomplished is remarkable, and I just think it's great that, you and Joe working together and trying to help other people like that. It's what's lost today in today's world. And it's like, I feel like it's like the true meaning of Christmas. It really hit me hard when I saw that and stuff. And Joe, you could continue to beat the Mets as many times as you want. I mean, I really, you can beat them every time, and you can put whatever red hot on the year. I couldn't care less. I mean, look, with the Yankees, it's something different. But and Landis, when you did meet Derek Jeter, did you play with the Yankees for a day too? Is that what happened also?
Yeah. A couple of years after I met Jeter, I kind of created a pretty good relationship with Joe Girardi. And, I've stayed kind of close with him over the years since then. He had me back a couple of years later. I signed a one-day contract. that was when A-Rod was still there, so he kind of took me under his wing that day. I took BP on the field. This was also all at spring training. So I went back, had lunch with A-Rod, chilled in the locker room with him, and just it was a crazy day for me. It was kind of like Joe said earlier. We were talking about how he threw his no-hitter and how it was all kind of like it was just a blackout, and then after it, getting to kind of remember it a little bit. For me, it was all kind of a blur when it was happening because it was such a cool experience for me. I was 10 or 11 at the time, and it was such a crazy experience for me. I didn't really know how to react to it at the time, but that was definitely one of the best days of my life.
Wow, it's really inspirational. And Joe, you've been with different teams. Who do you think was, your biggest mentor in learning how to pitch, and also which manager do you like playing for the best?
By the time I got to the league, the guy that I had spent, my entire pitching life with was my godfather. I mentioned him earlier, Dominic. He had been not only a pitching coach, but just a life mentor for me. In every aspect, from being a baseball player to being a good person. He was a role model for me in every way and still is. And then along the way, you meet pitching coaches that, really make impacts on you and can have little tweaks. And I think a part of that is being coachable. You got to be willing to listen to people, but not willing to give up, your foundation of who you are as a pitcher. Every pitching coach that I've been with along the way has, I've found little things to pick and grab from them to add to my arsenal and make me a better pitcher. I really enjoy working with Ruben Niebla. He's my pitching coach right now with the Padres. He's a very good mix of, old school gritty pitching and a little bit of the new wave with, knowing the numbers and how to, essentially recreate pitches. So, he's been a big impact, but I think Bob Melvin is probably the best all-around manager I've played for. Derek Shelton I didn't get to spend a ton of time with him. I spent a year, in a losing season there, but I really loved who he was as a manager and how he went, about his stuff with the players. But again, AJ Hinch, an amazing manager. I haven't really played for many bad ones. So, they all have some value. I think you got to understand that their job's difficult too. So, at times when things don't make sense, you got to understand that, sometimes it doesn't. So.
Yeah, it's hard to be focused with so much going on, videos and so many people are analysts, and you have, psychiatrists, you have that. It seems like it's very hard to be an athlete today. And to really stay focused, it's really testing me. You're a really good pitcher, Joe, and I always like you because you're an Italian guy, so I love that. I love when Italian guys are good. I grew up, I love the Dave Rigetti. I love the Mike Pagliarulo. I love all the guys that I grew up with. I love, and even he mentioned Joe Girardi, who was a really nice man. Landis, Joe Girardi, I've met a few times. He's just a really class act. So in Major League Baseball and all sports, you have a lot of class acts, and I have to tell you, it's a really great story what you guys are doing together, and what you're doing, Landis, is a credit. You're an inspiration to a lot of people out there, and I give you a lot of credit. And you work with them, Joe, wonderful. I can't tell you anything else to tell you. And you know what, Joe? I'm a Yankee fan. I don't even want to care about the 2017. I was one in the minority. I didn't care about the cheating. I didn't care about that. You got to go on the field and beat them. When we went to Houston, we only scored one run the last two games. So when we beat you 3 times in New York, where was the cheating then? You know what I mean? We beat you 3 days, right? No. Right? So what happened when we had, we couldn't beat Verlander,
And I'll tell you what, Gil, those 3 games in 17 that we played in Yankee Stadium were 3 of the craziest games I've played in my life as far as atmosphere and intensity from the fans. New York in the postseason is a real place, man. That's just Yankee Stadium in the postseason was a real place.
And you know what? That was the first time that stadium almost came alive like the old stadium did. Like when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, because that stadium is not the same. But that was the first time that I think the fans, that team came out of nowhere. So I think people in New York, when they kind of appreciate that team came very close. Hey, we were 1 game away, right? That was a close. It went to Game 7, right? Game 6 was, it's. I always feel like when you're up 3-2, the game to win is always a 6 game. It's a little difficult. Talk a little bit about the Dodgers series. How you came in and you did a great job in relief and stuff. Talk about that series and what was the difference in that series?
Oh man, dude, we were just so motivated to beat those guys. We've been getting beat up on them. I think we were 5-14 in the regular season against them. We were lucky to pull 1 game away out of each series for the whole year, pretty much. But we never felt like we were at full strength when we played them. We didn't feel like we had things clicking right, and that's not an excuse. I mean, that's why they win the division and win 111 games or whatever it was. But when it came down to it, man, our guys got right at the right time, and it was clicking on all cylinders. You know, the offense and defensive side of the ball, our base running, you know, our catching. Nola was throwing guys out at a rate that he hadn't thrown guys out at all year. Trent Grisham's, you know, smashing. So we just had a lot of confidence going into that series. And then when we took 1 or 2 at their place, that was the whole goal, was just go there. We're not expecting to take 2, just get 1 of the 2 and get it back to our place. And yeah, taking 3 in a row from them felt extremely good, man. After getting beat up on them by them all year, you know, to win 3 in a row and send them home, make them, you know, take that drive back. It felt really good.
Yeah, I'm also happy when you beat the Dodgers too. I'm not a big Dodger fan. They left Brooklyn, which is another story. But when we had big rivalries in the '70s with the Yankees, and we grew up with that, the Yankees and Dodgers, which were a really great series and so forth. But you know, Joe, what do you think about what's going on with all these free agents? I mean, with the amount of money and stuff, do you think it's just what the market's bearing? Are pitches that valuable at $43 million a year? What do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, I like to see these teams getting more competitive, and you know, really had a good time watching the Guardians last year and the way that they pushed into the postseason, and the moves they're making this offseason, grabbing Bell, and I mean the Mets, obviously they just keep going for it, and yeah, I think the game's in a good spot right now with what guys are making, and I feel like they're getting their worth.
Landis, do you like the new style baseball? You think you're gonna like it going back to like not having to shift anymore and all that? What do you think about that, Landis? Do you think that's gonna be better for the game or worse with all these analytic changes?
You know, with taking away the shift, I don't know how much of a difference it's gonna make in the grand scheme of things. But there's definitely going to be some plays here and there that it's going to be a little frustrating for pitchers when, you know, they're used to getting that hard ground ball, and then, you know, they normally get the out, but you know this time it's a single. So I think it'll make a little bit of a difference, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be anything too drastic.
Yeah, you know, Joe, you're a big fan of the pitch count. Is that something you grew up with from when you started, or is that because some old time guys don't believe in it as much? But do you feel like that really does help pitching careers?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I've only ever known it that way, to where about 100 pitches is what you get, give or take. You know, if you're in a good spot and you're cruising and your stuff's still holding, they'll give you some more. But I grew up in that, you know, 100 pitch, 7-inning kind of mark all the way through the minor leagues. So I've gone the distance a handful of times. I've thrown 120 something pitches, but to do that, you know, every 5 days, and I know guys did it back then, but again, that's what was expected. So like we grew up knowing 7 and 100. So whether it's, you know, psychologically you're telling yourself as you're coming up around 90 pitches, like, you know, I'm supposed to be running out of gas, or your mind is tricked into believing that you're almost done, you know, you're at the line. So I think if it hadn't been set on, you know, there might be more injuries, but there also might be guys throwing, you know, 300 innings a year. So.
Yeah, could you think of? I don't know if you ever watched that. I was on a plane a couple of weeks ago, and the Nolan Ryan story. And I was a kid and stuff. I can't believe that he threw 380 innings. Like, and you know, it's remarkable. And the guy, I mean, it's unbelievable. Did you watch that documentary, Landis? You can't believe it. Did you ever get a chance to watch that Nolan Ryan thing? I just was amazed on the amount of innings that he pitched.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch it. It was pretty cool. Well, Gil, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
And,
Gil, that was great, man. Very nice to meet you.
Great Christmas, happy and healthy New Year, and keep up the great work. Joe, have your show anytime you want.
Excellent, Gil. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Landis.
So back to where we left off before we had Gil on our Antarctica trip. Talked about doing it as a kind of a raising awareness for CAF. So I guess tell me a little bit about why you support CAF as much as you do.
Yeah, when I came back to San Diego, I wanted to get involved with a foundation or a charity in San Diego, and I wanted something that, you know, I had enjoyed working with, and something that felt meaningful to me. And the guy we've mentioned, my pitching coach Dominic, his daughter had osteosarcoma and has a prosthetic as well. So I know they had a connection with CAF in the past, and Dom spoke very highly of Bob, and then the ties came with you and Eric. It just seemed like a really good fit for us. And, you know, taking that trip to Antarctica was kind of like, I feel like the kickoff of our relationship with CAF. I know I've done a few things for them in the past, but we've never done something to that extent or something that extreme. And I think it worked out. I mean, it couldn't have gone better as far as efficiency and the accessibility for you guys. And it's a foundation that, you know, is so impactful for athletes, and for being an athlete that's still playing, you know, when the line comes when I'm going to have to stop for whatever reason it is, being able to let that go and not be in that athlete mindset anymore is going to be very difficult. And I know for a lot of guys, you know, that have either been injured or been born in a situation like you, no hands, no feet, you know, should a company like that not be around, you don't get that opportunity, and those dreams and stuff go away. So, you know, just that message and the joy and the, you know, excitement that it gives you guys is what, you know, really motivates me and inspires me.
Yeah. So CAF is Challenge Athletes Foundation. They've raised over $147 million since they started in 1994, and given out over 40,000 grants to challenged athletes like myself. It's anybody with a disability that has any desire to play sports. You know, they've helped me out a lot over the years with grants and stuff for like hitting lessons or any type of weight training or stuff like that. And, you know, their ultimate mission is to, and kind of their motto is to help people get back into the game of life through sport. That's one of the best things that Bob Babbitt, one of the co-founders, says. He says it very often, and it, you know, the first time I heard it, it really resonated with me and really kind of sank in that truly is their mission, is to get people back into the game of life through sport. So, you know, we're very thankful that you've stepped in and kind of joined the family of CAF.
Motto, man. That is a great motto.
So back to the trip, we the first 2.5 days or so through the Drake's Passage, the 40-foot swells, rocking the boat real bad. That was pretty tough. So talk a little bit about the fun time we had through that.
Yeah, that was rough, man. We had always heard about that, you know, that stretch, and we had talked about it before we even left, you know, Ushuaia to get on that ship. But I don't think anybody expected that full show. So I almost feel grateful that we, you know, got through it safely and have that experience. But if I had to go through it again, I don't think I would want to. It is a blessing, man. Like you said, the hand of God's on us, because there was 3 ships going through on that day, and 2 of them had to go back, and we were the one that made it through. So I feel like that adds to the story a little bit, man. The experience was incredible. You never know when you're going to go back through that, if ever again. So to go through it and get that full experience was really, really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of what we were saying the whole time. You know, if we're gonna do this, let's get the real Drake's Passage. Thankfully on the way back, it wasn't quite as bad. We were down to like
no kidding. I don't know if I can handle it twice.
Yeah, that was brutal. We both, I think we both got seasick during the same meeting.
Dude, it was that next morning in that room. I love the information that came out of there, but I hated being in there, dude. Every time I went in there, I got sick.
Yeah, that Shackleton room was tough. Yeah. But the people with Albatross Expeditions on the Ocean Victory there were really great. They
look at that picture on the right there, dude.
Oh, that was
we were exhausted.
Let's go ahead and talk about it. Hiking in Antarctica. Dude, that was
dude, there's another picture. I wish you could see the picture of that entire mountainside, because it was pretty steep and it was like a zigzag course back and forth. And like when we're down there, keep in mind for the people that are listening, when we're down there, we have to be very respectful and careful with, you know, the trek that we're leaving behind and you know, the impact we're leaving on that place. So they have a very specific path that's only about 1 foot to 1.5 feet wide, very, very narrow. And we're just having a really hard time getting up this mountain, like all of us are. And Landis has these big snowshoes on, and the track is so narrow that like both feet can't fit on the track at the same time. So half's going in the soft snow and it's sinking down to a hip, and then trying to push out, and this one goes down. So we're just teeter-tottering back and forth. And Landis and I just go arm over arm and just trekked up this entire mountain together, like pretty much dragging each other up it. And by the time we get to the top, we're both just on our back in the snow, absolutely exhausted, full sweat. We all like had to shed a jacket. And I remember I was talking to some of the guys on the boat, and they got to the top and they saw us like that. And I didn't know it at the time, but later that night we were talking, and I was like, dude, how about that trek up the mountain earlier? And they they were like, yeah, man, like, you know, you looked like you were grinding a little bit. I was like, yeah, me and Landis were both dying, bro. We like had to carry each other up that mountain. And he's like, oh, I was looking at you guys like, dang, what happened? I thought these guys would be in better shape. And I'm like, bro, we were working to get up that mountain.
And that's the thing, like, most people don't really realize how much snow that there really was. Like,
oh, it was tough.
It was probably 30 feet of snow, really, but you could only go down so far once you stepped in it. So we have this packed in path that's, you know, it's about a foot deep and then about a foot wide.
It's so crazy. Like that picture right there on the bottom right, like Eric's only like mid shin deep, but if you step off to the side, it's like you're up to your belly button in snow.
Yeah, you're going all the way down. And you see me in that picture, fell down on my face. That was a brutal walk, but we made it through.
Dude, and I respected you because at the end of it, like you were like, man, that was probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
It absolutely was. I mean, I thought hitting baseballs was tough, but that is next level. Never done anything quite like that. But so also we kayaked while we were there. That was super cool. We had a little snowball fight with our group. But talk about the experience you had while we were kayaking.
Dude, yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, the scenery, first off, let me paint this picture for you. We get off these off the Zodiacs into the kayaks in the middle of like this gigantic, looks like a snow globe, like as high up as you can see, almost into the clouds of just like snow in a full bowl around us, and the boat's just the ship's right in the middle of it. And we get off, and there's glaciers floating everywhere, and like I can't remember what they call it, shatter or something like that, where it's like just broken, looks like a crushed ice in a glass, and it's just everywhere. And we're going through there, and as soon as we get in the kayaks, huge crack, sounds like thunder or lightning behind us, and we turn back, and a massive avalanche is coming down the side. And we're hundreds of yards in off the shoreline, so we're not going to get hit by this thing, but big old piece of ice and snow comes off and comes tumbling down and crashing into the water. Another like couple minutes later, a second one happens. We got humpback whales, and then by the end we're just cruising through like the real narrow glaciers, and they're just like these big mountains of ice around you, and we're having like this snowball fights essentially with like the foot and a half that's floating on top of these glaciers on the water. It was just a blast, man, an absolute blast.
Yeah, it was some of the most fun I think we had. With the way the attachments were for my paddles, I wasn't able to like scoop the snow and throw it like you were.
Yeah, you were just,
I know, like at one point I just anchored us down to one of these icebergs, and you were just getting it with the snow.
I was like Will Ferrell and Elf. I was just.
Yeah, I think we definitely won that snowball fight though, for sure. We had to.
I think Allie had a good time too. The instructor, she was saying like it's the first snowball fight they've ever had out there.
Yes, and then she was talking to us because one night when we. Myself and the two other challenged athletes that went on the trip with us, we kind of told our story and showed some of our videos and stuff to pretty much everybody that was on the ship. And Allie, the guide for the kayaking, kind of said, like she said after it, that was one of the best experiences she's ever had. And, it's kind of inspired her to start working with a group out of her hometown that does like kayaking things with people with disabilities. So that was really cool to get to hear how we kind of impacted her outlook on stuff like that.
Yeah, that was awesome to hear. And that was like one of the coolest things about the trip, man, is like seeing everybody, and not to say that anybody was giving smug looks when you guys walked in, but the vibe and the level of appreciation that they showed at the end of that trip was unbelievable, man. Like I thought it was really cool the amount of people we had in there and how many people stayed. I mean, we gave like almost 2 hours, and people were locked in. I mean, the questions at the end were amazing. The stories the whole thing was unbelievable. And I think seeing the impact that we left on all those people there, and that was the idea of the trip. You look at the world record and all the other stuff that went along. Like the idea was for people to like be impacted by what CAF is and what you guys are doing. And I think we hit that on the head with that last night, and hearing you guys' stories and the adversity and challenges that you've been through, and what you guys hope to accomplish by doing that. It was a great trip, dude. And I think we really made an impact on everybody that was on that ship.
Yeah, it was definitely a great time. And like you said, when we got on the ship, you could kind of tell some people weren't quite really sure about how myself and Justin and Roderick were gonna do it. They didn't really say anything. They didn't have any like crazy looks at us or anything. You could just kind of tell they weren't really sure how it was gonna go.
Right.
And by the end of the trip, they were all, talking to us, asking us questions about what we do, and they'd really gotten to kind of know who we are a little bit, and they were all for what we do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I feel like you can just kind of read the body language and the personality of people sometimes, and seeing, the reaction they had to you guys when we walked on, and the reaction they had on that last night when you're singing karaoke in the Shackleton Lounge. It was awesome, dude. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, it was a really fun trip. Aside from the big moment that me and you had on the continent of Antarctica, it might have been the first time it's ever been done.
Right.
What was your favorite part aside from that moment that we'll talk about here in a
minute? I enjoyed that last night. I think that was the best for it. That was like the perfect tie to it. And for me, I hadn't gotten to hear much about Justin and Roderick's stories either. So like, I felt like I was a guest, in a sense, getting to hear your guys' stories and then getting to hear you speak, man. Just even the growth that you've made mentally from when I first met you. That was the sweetest part of the trip. There was certain things that were like super fun that, we'll tell stories about, but I think the impactful thing that won't leave is the way that I felt when that night was over. After listening to you guys speak, obviously like there was so many moments that were awesome, dude. The last dinner was special, that whole night, everything.
Yeah, it was a really, really cool night to get to experience with everybody on the ship.
Right.
Especially because after, a lot of people had questions for us and they really wanted to learn more about our stories and how we get through everyday life.
Right.
So now we'll talk about it. The pending world record with Guinness for the fastest pitch ever thrown in Antarctica. Let's play that video real quick.
Here we go. Come on.
'86. Let's go. Oh,
oh! 86 miles an hour. I would say that's not too bad. We can work with that.
Right, but I'm saying the other video that was from the side was the first one that we threw that was 86. And we were all like super fired up about it. And then I thought I was going to get like 87 or 88 and got 86.
Okay, you're like, I got one more. I can get one more. Here we go. And then it was like, oh, it's 86 again.
I mean, we only had limited amount of throws there too.
Yeah, you have 5 throws. I had 2.
You fired up quick too.
Let's watch my video real quick.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that, dude.
I took a little bit off of it for you to hit your number 44.
Yeah,
that was for you.
Appreciate that.
But that was such a cool experience to be able to say that we're the only two people that, and most likely will ever do it because of all the permits you have to get, and the approval is way too much for anybody with any type of sanity to do it.
That's what's nice about that, dude, is that like I know there's a lot of people that can throw harder than 86, and like the idea was not to set some crazy record, but if you want to go down there and try to do that, there's a lot of things you're going to have to go through, and the level of appreciation you'll have for that place after you do is completely different than not going down there and just wanting the record. It's the experience of learning about that place and the importance, like that last day on the boat that we went with Neil and Jeff, and it was just that private one, and he was kind of talking about the algae and how important that is for the krill and for the whales, like the progression of that and life down there. I was not aware of all those things. So it was really cool getting to learn a little bit about that too.
Yeah, that last trip that we went out, kind of our private Zodiac cruise we had, where Neil was explaining to us a lot about how the environment was changing and how it was affecting all the wildlife there. And then we were within maybe 20 yards of 2 humpback whales that just kind of came up right next to us. That was
for like
really
25 minutes, just right next to the boat. That was cool.
Yeah, you could tell they were curious about us because they didn't go too far from us. We stayed pretty close.
Right before the polar plunge.
It was. That was
That was epic.
That was not too fun. It was a great idea. I'm so glad I did it, but I'm glad that
You
it's
got to
over.
do it, you know?
Yeah. It's one of those feelings that, like, because I first hit and I was like, oh, this is nothing. This doesn't feel too bad. And then it really
Sneaks
set
up on
in, and I was like,
That's
Sneaks
cold. Up on you, boy. Yeah.
You threw in a nice little pose for us. I was so focused on just getting in and out, but you threw in a nice little,
Yeah,
made it look nice.
I wanted to do something big, and I was going to go backflip, and then right before me, Sean whipped out a monster backflip. I'm like, I don't think I can do a better one, so I'm going to try something different.
Yeah, Sean had a really nice backflip. Speaking of Sean, so your, I guess, ex-teammate now, Sean Mania, went on this trip with us. How did that go? You kind of convincing him, or just kind of bringing the idea? And he was like, heck yeah.
Yeah, Sean's a traveler, man. He likes to get out there and see stuff. So I love who he is as a person, as a player, everything about him. Him and Talat together are a riot. They're just really fun people to be around. So I don't think I even like formally introduced it to him. I think he just heard or saw a post and he's like, yo, you're going to Antarctica? And I was like, yeah, you want to go? He's like, yeah, I kind of do. And then within like a couple of weeks, he was like, I talked to Talat. I think we want to go. And then a couple of weeks later, he's like, we got flights. And yeah, so it didn't take a whole lot of convincing, but I'm really glad they came down. He's always the life of the party where he's at. And he's a really good person as well. So I know he made a lot of good friends on that boat as well.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts, was getting to know Sean a little bit. Fellow Indiana boy.
Yeah.
I go to South Central in Elizabeth. He went to South Central in Union Mills, which is up north. So, a little bit of a connection there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great experience getting to know him and Talat both. They're super cool people. They watched the documentary the other day. They both really enjoyed it. So getting to kind of have Sean now, and, one of my mentors and just friends in general, to be able to kind of talk to if I'm having a rough time like I do with you, is pretty great.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I think one of my favorite parts about that trip is this group chat. Have you been keeping up with the group chat?
It is wild. They're going nuts. Neil's telling us stories about the trip he's on now.
It is so good. Yeah. So Aaron was saying that he was sitting on that bus in Thailand.
I saw that. Yeah.
Aaron that went on the trip with us, went from there straight to Thailand, or went home for a day then to Thailand. And he's like, I'm sitting on this bus, or I can't remember where he said he was, but he goes, these people next to me start talking about this kid that like threw a baseball in Antarctica, and he goes, you wouldn't believe the shock on their face when I told them I was with them,
No, yeah, this group chat that we have has been super entertaining to keep up with. A lot of them are huge soccer fans.
Yeah,
a lot of them are huge soccer fans too, so they're going nuts with the World Cup right now.
Yeah, good photos, good videos in there. It's awesome. Yeah.
The one animal that we didn't get to see that we all really hoped to see was an orca, and that same ship that we were on went out on another expedition, and the guide, Neil Drake, that put our group together and got us there, was sending us videos in that group chat of a pod of orcas that were right next to the boat. So that kind of hurt, I know, all of us a little bit to see that.
I'm jealous. Very jealous of that.
But the thing that kind of got me was, he said he had to wake up everybody, and it was 11 p.m. and we were just getting started at 11.
Yeah, for real, dude. That was weird. Like not having much darkness at all. Like sun.
Yeah, that's what I think. It was almost
rising and then right back up.
Yeah, it was hard to know when it was a good time to go to bed, because you never really knew what time it was.
Yeah, we had some good nights, man. I remember the night of my birthday there. I guess not my birthday night, but like the morning, midnight hit, and it turned my birthday, and we all celebrated pretty late into the night there. But we're on that 8th floor just watching whales go right next to the ship for like 20 minutes on both sides. It was like 15 whales going, and it was cool, man. The collection of people was awesome too, huh? Like not only our group, our like 20 something that we went down there.
Yeah, all the people that were also on the ship were super cool.
Yeah, I mean, people from all over the world too, and every one of them was there to have fun and to meet people and to interact and to communicate. Like, everybody was just clicking. It was so fun, man. What a group.
It was pretty awesome. And then you said your birthday night, when we had that dinner at the Hot Rock restaurant, cooking steaks on a hot rock. That was the first time I've ever even seen that. That was
that was cool.
That was super cool.
Yeah, that was fun. Neil setting all that stuff up, made it a really enjoyable trip for everybody, made sure to make it special and be able to let me celebrate my birthday there. That was cool. I didn't mean to steal any night, of the short trip. But I thought it was really cool that everyone showed some love and let me have a little celebration there.
It was definitely a fun trip. And then the last couple nights on the way back, we just kind of hung out and just wherever we were at. We played a lot of Monopoly Deal.
Oh yeah, what a game!
That got competitive sometimes.
What a game!
We had a lot of time, a lot of good times, and it was a pretty great trip.
It was, man. And everybody, like the staff, few shout outs. We're gonna go with Menard, Brenz, Olga, Rogelio, Cairo, Tyro.
They all took care of us.
I mean
they were on top of it.
Was dialed in, and of course,
every time you left your room, Menard came in there and made the bed, cleaned up anything, left a piece of chocolate on the bed.
Yeah, even for my birthday, I came back and there was like a birthday cake made out of shower towels with a dog, because I had been talking to him about Theo, and he made like a dog out of towels with sunglasses on, then made a penguin. He made like an entire like presentation on the bed, dude. It was so cool.
And that's part of, I think, what made the trip so great was the crew really taking care of us and making it such a great time.
Oh yeah, man, it was sweet. I loved it.
Well, Joe, it was such an amazing time having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, dude, you got a great show, man. That was a fun time.
Yeah, thank you. I'll talk to you later.
You holler at me, man. You know where to find me.
All righty.
All right, dude. See ya.
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Mountain Mover. Joe's a pretty close friend of mine, has been for the last couple of years. So it means a lot for everybody that watched. Gil, thank you for calling in. And see ya.